Now then, people, welcome back to the Just Joe football show. And of course, we are gearing up for, one of Leeds United's biggest games in the last decade for sure. A return to the promised land is on the horizon. We need to get there. Hopefully, we will get there. Play Southampton on Sunday live, 3 p.m. at Wembley. And do you know what? I wanted to preview previews all week. Speak to people that know and understand the game, and there's not many more that understand the Championship than Ryan Dilks of the second tier. So Ryan, thank you very much for giving up your time and jumping on. How are you, mate?
I am superb, mate. Absolutely superb. Probably feeling a lot better than you and the rest of the Leeds fan base, who are probably absolutely bricking it ahead of Sunday.
Yeah. 100%. Now, I haven't pre-warned Ryan about this question, folks, but there seems to be a notion, Ryan, that the second tier hate Leeds United. Would you like to put that to bed right now, or
is that alongside every other club we apparently hate as well? It's absolutely ridiculous. It drives me mad as well with the ongoing you've got an agenda against our club kind of thing. It's just mad because we can't have an agenda against everyone, can we? Because that doesn't make any sense. But as soon as you say anything negative, that's just how people interpret it on the internet nowadays. But
100%.
If you're the type of football fan who isn't that way inclined, I have so much more respect for you because you clearly actually have some common sense.
And listen, it's been a bit of a mad season, hasn't it? What have you made to this season as a whole? I know you were champion in Ipswich. I listen to the podcast every week. And sometimes it frustrates me because, of course, I'm a Leeds fan and I'm like, no, you're wrong. Because this is what football fandom is, right? These things happen. But you have been champion in Ipswich right from the start, Ryan. So I have to give you props for that. Were you surprised at the top two in the end, or did you envisage this was going to happen?
Considering I predicted it at the start of the season, no. I think let's be honest, it was always going to be a massive surprise and a massive balls up from someone if Leicester weren't in the top two, because biggest budget, strongest squad I think that's ever been relegated from the Premier League. It was always going to be mad if they didn't get up automatically, and they nearly messed it up, but they got there in the end. Ipswich, even though I predicted it at the start of the season, that was always more of a I just fancy it kind of thing, as opposed to I expect this to happen. But over the course of the season, they've just been ridiculously consistent. They've been a joy to watch, and in the end, it's just a great story for the Championship that Ipswich have gone up. And I know this may rankle Leeds fans a bit, but it would have been a bit disappointing from a neutral perspective if the top three of the season were made up by the three teams who got relegated, the three teams who have got parachute payments. So
I was going to ask you that, right?
That's been a good story. Go on.
Do you worry that the Championship is becoming that? Like, three go down, three go up, three go down? Because, it's not great, is it, if it does become that?
I mean, this season hasn't been a great case study for it, has it? But we have got to remember the season before, none of the, Norwich and Watford both failed to go straight back up. Look, I think it's difficult to say at the moment. I think there's a massive disparity between the two leagues in terms of the finance, and that's something that needs to be addressed really soon. I do worry a bit that the three teams who go up in the Championship this season may come straight back down again next season. But that's another story for another day. And what happens next season is going to be interesting. I don't think Sheffield United will go straight back up because of the season they've had. Luton and Burnley, they might do. So it is a concern. And it's something that needs to be sorted out. I don't think there's a massive gap in terms of the actual quality between the top teams in the Championship and the bottom teams in the Premier League. It's just when it comes to things like squad depth and the quality of depth, they're on completely different planes. And that's the big concern for me over the course of the season. When the injuries start piling up, these teams just can't compete with, the other teams who are down there. And it takes two clubs, potentially, like Nottingham Forest and Everton, for example, to be absolute basket cases for teams to have any chance of staying up. And you got to keep in mind, if it wasn't for points deductions in the Premier League this season, I know I'm rambling a bit at this stage, but if it wasn't for points deductions, then Forest would have stayed up by 10 points.
Yeah,
so that's it.
Yeah.
That's the big concern for me.
Yeah, it's a great point actually, because I hadn't really thought about that points deduction as well. Because on the final day, Luton needed a 12-goal swing, but had no points deduction. That wouldn't have even been a thing, would it? So,
exactly.
Yeah, it was a bit of a cakewalk in the end. I don't want to focus too much. We look, it's playoff weekend. I just thought I'd get your thoughts initially on then. Let's just talk about Leeds briefly, mate. Farke done a good job. I know you weren't keen on him when he first got appointed. I remember. He'll struggle. He didn't do great at Norwich. I don't think he'll be the man that Leeds need. And actually, he's done really well. 90 points, third in the league. Good season from Farke.
Yeah, it's funny how things change, isn't it? Because you're right. When he first came in, I wasn't too convinced. I think the job that he had on his hands with, dealing with the upheaval from last summer, I thought that may be a bit too much for him. And plus, his work since leaving Norwich hasn't been fantastic, but he clearly just gets the Championship. And I think he actually deserves a hell of a lot of credit, even though Leeds didn't get automatically promoted. He deserves a hell of a lot of credit for still producing the season that they have, despite the upheaval in the summer and the fact that, Leeds have got the biggest points tally ever for a Championship side who didn't get automatically promoted. You can't do much when you've just been pipped by two ridiculously good teams.
Agreed.
So I think Farke deserves a lot of respect for the job that he's done. And we were talking about this not too long ago, Joe, but the calls from certain sections of the Leeds fan base that Daniel Farke's failed as Leeds manager, I think is completely overblown. It just didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, totally wild. What about his counterpart, Russell Martin? I can get Lampard vibes, Ryan. You might see that as a good thing, but I see that as a really bad thing. So
I definitely don't see it as a good thing.
I'm not keen on Russell Martin. I'm genuinely not. And I know, obviously, we'll talk about Southampton a little bit more in depth. But what do you make to his counterpart? Because it's been very much up and down for him. He could have got sacked before the Leeds game. They beat us 3-1. They go on a decent run. I'm not sure all Southampton fans are enamoured with him, are they?
No, they're not. They, I don't think they're completely convinced by the style of play. And if Southampton were to get promoted to the Premier League, it would be fascinating to see how he approached games in the Premier League. I think he gets a bit of a hard gig, does Russell Martin, because you have got to keep in mind he's only finished 3 points behind Leeds. And we're crowning Leeds the best team, or one of the best teams to never get automatically promoted in the Championship. So you got to keep that in mind. And when it comes to the big games this season, he has produced in most of them for Southampton. Of course, getting battered by Leicester earlier in the season wasn't a good look, but more often than not, he has produced when it really matters. And 87 points is a bloody good points tally in a normal season. So I think he gets a bit of a hard gig. And yes, he does have faults. No manager's perfect in the Championship. And, his insistence on just playing the same style, even when things aren't necessarily going well, is something that definitely he needs to work on. And, defensive record is another thing that probably needs to be sorted out. But overall, I think he is still a very promising manager. Look, we're talking about somebody who I think was being linked with the Brighton job not too long ago. And, I don't think that's a ridiculous thing if that were to happen, although I don't think it will do. He's a good manager. I think he's a very good manager. He's still got a lot to learn, but I think he gets a bit of a hard gig from certain sections of the Championship fan bases.
Yeah. No, I know. I know before he got the Saints job when he was at Swansea that a lot of Leeds fans, a lot of tacticos from certain sections were really big fans of Russell Martin and seeing him as an option for Leeds United before we were linked to, Vieira, Patrick Vieira and stuff, and obviously we settled on Farke in the end. So yeah, he's clearly a good coach, good manager. It's just, I think he's a bit of a knob, but yeah,
I get what you mean there, because he does have a way of rubbing people the wrong way, including his own fans.
Exactly.
That's just the way it goes. I will point out, people will like to point to how we quite often on the second tier Twitter account compare his likeness to one Ryan Clark-Neal. But that's it's just fun. It's just banter, lads.
Yeah, it's great. It is funny. I've seen it a lot, and that's what I think. The second tier Twitter account is it triggers like you would not believe.
It's unbelievable.
It's great for interaction though, and I think people don't realise that at times. And I'm like, they've Anyway, let's not let the tricks of the trade out of the bag, right?
Nope.
Right, let's talk about the game itself. We've just done a little bit on yours, so I don't want to sort of like carbon copy, but obviously Leeds United have some great players in the likes of Somerville, Rutter. From a Southampton perspective, who should Leeds be wary of, if any Leeds fans that haven't watched much of them this season?
Well, I think Southampton are more of a collective than other teams who finished in the top four, who may sometimes rely on more individual brilliance, but that's fine. Relying on individual brilliance is a completely understandable thing to do. But an obvious one's Adam Armstrong, the most goals and assists in the whole of the Football League this season. I think even despite that, he's still a bit underrated by more Championship neutrals, because he has just had a ridiculous season. And I think he's kind of in the Dwight Gale paradox, where he is ridiculous at Championship level. Premier League level, I'm still not sure, but the guy's a proven bagsman at this level, and that's still very much the case. Flynn Downs is really the underrated part of this Southampton team. When he's not there, they struggle to tick. And when he is there, he is the heartbeat of this team. He just makes everything happen for Southampton and just runs that midfield superbly well. And we saw that in the West Brom game. And Kyle Walker-Peters plays as a right back, so not necessarily the normal position where you'd pick out someone who can cause problems, but he influences games so much and is clearly just a Premier League player. I'd be surprised if he's still at Southampton next season 100%. If they don't go, because he's just ridiculously good. So they're three players who I would pick up. And if Leeds do want to do a job on Southampton this weekend, then they need to try and marshal them as best as they 100%.
Can. 100%. I was surprised no one took Kyle Walker-Peters in January. I can't believe he got through the summer, but then in January to not have a little bite of the cherry. I'm not too sure why he was still in the Championship. Where will the game be won and lost for you, Ryan? Obviously, you've mentioned some key personnel, and I agree with you completely there. Where will the game be won and lost?
In the head. Mentality is the key thing in the playoff final. It just always is. How often have we seen it over the years where you have a team who are substantially better in terms of quality, but if you don't keep your head in the playoff final, then it costs you. And look, Leeds fans will know fully well over the past few weeks that they've maybe not handled the pressure too well. Southampton haven't either. So it's all about who does that the best, really. I think the midfield is going to be really fascinating as well, because Southampton, that's where they like to play, and they like to dominate the midfield as much as possible, and that's why someone like Flynn Downs is so key. Will Smallbone as well is just a really underrated player, and I know Leeds fans have been a bit concerned about the midfield recently, and I don't think Kamara's been fantastic recently. I don't think Gruever's been great either, although obviously that was a different story in the second leg of the semi-finals. So I mean, we were talking about this not too long ago as well, Joe, that it wouldn't be the worst idea to move Ethan Ampadu back into midfield, if you ask me. But I think the midfield is going to be a big area as well. It's also obviously about taking your chances, and Leeds can be a bit wasteful at times 100%. When it comes to that. Southampton can be as well. So mentality is the first and foremost thing, and that's not just turning up on the day and not being nervous. It's about taking your chances of being composed in front of goal as well.
100%. And and when you don't miss them chances, when you miss them chances, not letting it get in your head and keep going, etc., isn't it? But you mentioned there before, you mentioned mentality. It's not about who is better, but who is better for you? Who is your favourite going into this game? Who is the better
Leeds.
side? Yeah,
Leeds. Definitely, 100%. Like, Southampton have got a very good squad. It's definitely one of the best in the Championship this season. You could make.
I'm surprised to hear you say that with such Leeds on the nose.
I think most neutrals would say the same thing. Really? I think if you don't think that, then you're kidding yourself. To be honest, I think, as I say, Southampton do have a really good squad. You could make a fair argument that it's one of the strongest that we've seen at Championship level, but definitely is. Leeds is, for me, is not too far off Leicester's, and that's mainly down to that quality that Leeds have got in the front areas. Obviously, Crescencio Somerville's the obvious one. I don't think we need to spend much time on him. Same with Willie Nonto. Jorginho Ruta has had the best season a striker could possibly have, while only scoring 6 goals in a season. And if he could shoot, he'd be a ridiculous player. But then the likes of Roden, Ampadu, they're just ridiculously good centre halves. And then other players around the team as well. Just that, the quality and depth that Leeds have is just astounding. So, look, it's an easy question for me. Leeds have the better quality. It's just about which Leeds side turns up on the day, because as we've seen plenty of times this season, they do have a tendency of not being the Leeds side that we all know and love.
Yeah. Know and love. I don't think we all love, but we all know. Yeah. Right, Ryan. Obviously, now we're recording this at like 5 o'clock Monday. So, which set of fans this time next week will be still laid in bed with sore heads after celebrating promotion to the Premier League?
And which set of fans will be with sore heads?
Yeah. But like crying. Still in bed but crying into their pillow. Yeah.
I think Leeds. I like to think that that's a corner turned in the second leg. I'm not just saying this because I'm on a Leeds fan channel, by the way, obviously. I just think if that's a corner turned from the second leg, then Leeds should walk it. If Leeds play anything like they did against Norwich, they should walk it, no matter which Southampton side turns up. Obviously, the big concern is how Southampton have done the double over Leeds in the league this season, but that doesn't necessarily matter much when it comes to the one-off game on this Sunday. I just worry. The only thing that worries me is whether Leeds do turn up and whether the nerves does get to them, because if that is the case, Southampton are very, very capable of taking Leeds apart. So that's the concern for me. It's I would say it's Leeds to lose, but unfortunately, that's a very capable scenario. Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, innit? I think for me, it's the first goal is so crucial. I'm bricking it, but hopefully Leeds United will come through it and actually, do well in the playoffs and we'll be Premier League.
well, we'll see. It's funny because the nerves haven't kicked in with me yet, even though I haven't got a dog in the fight.
Yeah,
I think when I'm actually at the stadium on Sunday, I will start getting the jitters, and I'll be like, this doesn't
from the press box as well, mate. It must be nice, won't it?
Yeah. Well, it's the second time I've been in the press box at Wembley, and it's a bit flashy. I will admit.
Yeah, I can imagine.
I'm just looking forward, and again, this isn't me pandering to the Leeds fan base. I'm just looking forward to, before the game, when the players come out, marching on together, ringing out around Wembley. It's going to be such a fantastic sight, and that's going to be something I'm really looking forward to. But I'm also looking forward to the game itself, because I always love the playoff final. Even though I will be nervous on the day, don't have a dog in the fight, I will still be thinking, I don't know why this matters so much to me, but it bloody does.
Brilliant. Leeds fans will have to go some way to beating the Southampton fan who was doing the Jeff Hardy dance in his end.
Yes.
So
and the guy with the prosthetic leg as well, and the puppet as well.
There's
really, so much going on there.
Madness, man. Only in English football, only in the Championship, I'd say. Listen, folks, I know you will have already. Make sure you check out Ryan and Justin over on the Second Tier, great Championship podcast, now the number one. When we left the Championship, I don't remember that being the case. Has that happened in the... Or was it...
When we... Because I remember speaking to you quite a lot before you guys got promoted last time.
Yeah.
And we had just started out. That was our first season covering the Championship. And I guess we were the number one Championship podcast anyway, because, we kind of filled that market, but we're now the number one EFL podcast.
So
officially. So please, subscribe to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever. We're also now doing videos on YouTube as well. Yeah. So if you are the kind of person who likes watching your podcasts, which I still don't understand, but people do.
I do, I watch podcasts,
Really?
It's mad. Yeah.
Why?
Like I'll be walking the dog, and let's say I'm listening to The Overlap, Stick to Football, then I'll come back and I'll find it on YouTube up to the point I've listened to and watch it. I don't know. I don't
understand it. I don't understand it at all. But if you are that way inclined, then please subscribe to us on YouTube as well.
Great stuff. Listen, Ryan, thank you. Thanks everyone for watching. Let's hope we win on Sunday, and there'll be plenty more previews and stuff in the lead up to the game. Thanks everyone.